EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Football Friday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen, here to close out the week for you strong on a Football Friday. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Friday morning, brother?
Doing good. First Friday, Football Friday, the off season, the official dead period, I guess we'll call it, between minicamp and training camp, which is a little bit shorter this year. So you got that. Eagles coming in a couple days early, so won't be as big as a dead period.
Yeah, so I think we got 5-6 weeks. So you said, John, they're coming in what, July
22nd. Report July 23rd will be first practice. Don't have the practice schedule or anything like that, but they'll be on the field July 23rd.
So we're just under 6 weeks to go. We got about 5.5 weeks until they report, and then like 5 days until they're on the field. So that will be when training camp kicks off. Looking forward to that. Johnny Mac, here we are, June 13th, Friday. What'd you learn, Johnny Mac? What's your biggest lesson? Let's just kind of recap the week here on Birds 365. What's the number one thing you learned from the 2025 mini camp? And you can include in all of spring work.
Still a very good team. A lot of things have to go right. I think they're approaching it the right way. They kind of have a soft band. They're not using the word repeat. Sure, somebody will slip somewhere along the way. But they don't want to use that word. Nick has taken to coin sustained success, which they've already had. If you go through the Nick Sirianni era, 2 Super Bowl appearances. But you kind of see the difference between 2022 and 2024 and being close and getting over the hump. But if you're in the position, there's 30 teams that aren't in that position to get over the hump. So the whole idea is to stay consistently good and be in a position to strike when things do fall your way. Because there are going to be seasons where injuries just, overcome, unfortunately, in the sport. There are going to be seasons where the football doesn't bounce your way in a close game. But if you're consistently in that position, you have a chance to make those runs. And I think the thought process seems to be not only locally, which is understandable because they're the Super Bowl champions, but even nationally. Despite all the attrition, everybody looks at this team and says, all right, this is still better than pretty much everybody else from a talent standpoint. So that's a good place to start.
It's a great place to start, man. Coming off the Super Bowl, and the team is still locked and loaded. John, what do you think about what they've done so far this offseason as compared to what they did after the 2017-18 Super Bowl, and then also after 22, what they did? Do you think there's a stark contrast to kind of their approach this offseason as compared to how they handled, the type of success they had in those seasons?
Well, I think Howie looks back on the Super Bowl 52 championship and thinks he went a little bit too far with standing pat. A much more veteran-laced team than this one, which is a younger group. So just it was easier in theory because they had so many young contributors this year. Obviously, they're going to contribute again. But I think he in hindsight, he looks back at the 2017 team and says, they probably stuck with some aging players a little bit too long. And that's always difficult to balance because you have tremendous respect and for players that got you to that position. Remember, that was the first Super Bowl champ. That'll always be the first Super Bowl.
Yep, no doubt.
So that was even more of a just incredible burden to lift off the franchise and everybody involved with it. But I think now that he looks back, that's what he sees, and I think it was baked in because you had so many. I mean, this is a young team. That's the most probably exciting part of the current Eagles is they won the Super Bowl and they're still incredibly young, which is rare. It's one of the youngest teams in football, and they're getting younger because of the moves they made on defense. So, um, I think part of that was just the nature of the roster, and it's always, it's easy to say hit on draft picks and have them contribute early.
Right.
I mean, that's just lip service. You gotta find the right people. You gotta, if everybody could do that, it'd be easy. But the Eagles just have a boatload of effective young players.
You think they did it again in the draft this year?
Oh, well, that's way too early. I mean, one guy hasn't even been on the field practicing because he's injured. And I like Makuba. I think he's a fit for what Vic wants. But again, I think people have to understand he ain't the 33rd pick. He's the 64th pick.
Yeah, right.
There are some deficiencies as well. And then when you get down to day 3, it's always, and I think Howie's description when they went into the war room, and it's heavily edited, but it's real from the perspective of, he's instructing his personnel staff to find players on day 3 that have big upsides more than he can be a backup for me, because his belief is you can find backups pretty easily in free agency and even later in the process. So the day 3 guys are about, finding that one trait that could make them be starters and developing that trait. So day 3 is always a crapshoot, but you see the philosophy with guys like Ty Robinson and Smile Munden specifically. Drew Kendall, I think, is going to be a starting center in this league. They think Miles Hinton has a huge upside, which I was surprised. I thought Cameron was, but they drafted Miles Hinton before. Not, a long time. You're talking about, I think, 16 pick difference, but they picked him ahead of Cameron Williams for a reason. They think he's got a huge upside if they can tap into it. And then even Antoine Powell-Ryland, his production at the college level, we've talked about, you can see the trait that he has. So that's what they're looking for on day 3. But the two key guys that should play at some point this season, one guy hasn't been able to practice because he had surgery in March. And, I think Andrew Makuba had a strong spring. And I think he took positive steps. I think he's on a positive path to early playing time, but look at the guys replacing as well. I don't think he's going to be CJ Gardner-Johnson on the field.
John's big takeaway from camp, though, that the team is still a very good roster. We'll see how it shakes up against the rest of the rosters in the NFL. Always a lot of parity in the NFL and always a lot of ups and downs from the season to season. So we'll see who gets better, who gets worse going into next year. Johnny Mac, the biggest newness on this team, at least from my perspective, is probably Kevin Patullo, just because that's it. I mean, Vic is there, Nick is there, Jalen is there, the whole offense is there. I guess there's changes on the defensive personnel, but I think Kevin Patullo is the biggest change. How confident are you in Kevin Patullo, and did what you saw in spring work impact both either positively or negatively what you think is going to happen with that situation? You do remember, obviously, what happened at this time last year with Kellen Moore. Nothing crazy, but I think we all left minicamp like, let's see what happens here with Kellen Moore. I don't know if we feel that this year with Patullo.
No, I'm very high on Kevin Patullo. I think it was strong spring from I think it was Jalen Hurts' best spring ever. Not that matters, because he probably had his worst spring ever last year, and they won the Super Bowl. At least going back to, obviously when he was a rookie and first year starter, at least till that point. So, take that with a grain of salt, but I think he was very comfortable. Kevin's been here since Nick's gotten here, so I think there's that part of it. It's not like, there's that narrative of all the offensive coordinators he's had and all the play callers he's had dating back to Alabama. And it's a different guy every year, basically, with the exception of the overlap with Shane Steichen. At Alabama, it was like in his 3 years at Alabama, which he didn't play that much in the first year, but in his 3 years at Alabama, they had 2 each year. Because the expectations are so high. At Alabama, it's like,
Yeah, absolutely.
if one little thing's off, they're like, F this guy. Let's get it's change. Could be Lane Kiffin or Steve Sarkisian, guys like that early in his career. And Mike Loxley, and I forget them all.
Those are the 3 you had right there. I think those are the 3.
No, there's like 6.
There was more? Was there
Oh,
more?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And even here, I think a lot of people don't again, he didn't play a lot when he was a rookie. I got to look this up now that I've gone down this route, but he didn't play a lot here when he was a rookie, but he did play at the end of the season when things went off the rails. And everybody says Doug Peterson. Doug was on the record, said he handed off play calling at times to Press Taylor and Rick Scangarella that season. So there were like 3 different guys who were calling plays at times for him. So there's been, in a lot of ways, he's proven that doesn't matter by his and I'm going back to college where his
I think he had Dable too, didn't he?
Yes, he had, and that's what I'm looking up. He had, so the first year was Kiffin and Sarkisian, which everybody knows, Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian, because they're high profile coaches. The second one, and everybody knows Brian, of course, Brian Daboll. And then it was Mike Loxley. He didn't finish the season. And then it was Loxley and Josh Gaddis in 2018.
That's right.
And then 2019 was Lincoln Riley, which was obviously had a great season at Oklahoma. And I think it was a runner-up for the Heisman. In 2020, he got here with Doug Peterson, which I just said. You should also put Doug Peterson / Press Taylor / Rich Scangarella. Not that he played that much, but that's what it was. 2021, Nick got here, which is, he game week 8, I believe, gave it to Shane Steichen. 2022 was Shane. 2023 was Brian. 2024 is Kellen. And 2025 is Kevin Patullo. So I just wrote about this. Jalen was like, yeah, I've gotten better at it. I mean, every single year.
Yeah, I like the way he responded to the answer. He's like, 6? Is that how he resaid the number back to whoever asked the question?
And it's more than that, actually.
Yeah.
It's more than that. But like I said, look, they won the Super Bowl with the guy from outside the building and a new quarterbacks coach and Doug Nussmeier. So why can't they do it again? And this time they have a guy from inside the building, new quarterbacks coach from outside the building. But who cares at this point? Why is this still a narrative? And hey, I asked the question, and you'll be hearing a lot about that coming up as we get closer to training camp. Well, we get a embargoed session with Nick Sirianni where he talks extensively about sort of big picture issues. And one of the questions I was able to get in there was about that constant churn. And they're kind of flipping that. You can see Nick is kind of flipping it. You can see, because then someone asked him before minicamp, I think it was John Clark, same type of question. And Jalen Hurts got asked the question after the minicamp practice about all the change. And it's like, from their perspective, I mean, the success has been pretty consistent.
What do you mean when you say they're flipping it?
Well, they're flipping it from the perspective of, I think everybody automatically goes to it's a negative thing.
Okay.
And sometimes it's a positive thing. Sometimes because you get little different things from Nick and
Right.
Shane and Brian and Kellen and now Kevin, and they add things, and that if you use it in a positive way, you can actually grow and you can actually get better. And I think pretty much if you phrase that to 95% of the fans and even media people, they say, well, that's a negative. And Howie said this a couple of years ago. Now you can get more continuity, but I forget, like, look at the offensive coordinator churn around the NFL. That is not a position where you can keep guys for a long period of time because two things happen. One, you're successful and you get poached, or two, you're supposed to be successful and you're not as successful as people expected, and those guys get fired, which isn't fair, but that's just the reality. So, like, where's this great? And usually, when you have this great continuity, and you could point the outliers, it's because you're just kind of good, but not great. Nobody wants the guy. Is that the situation you want?
Well, I do see the positive of you get a lot of football minds, and you got to be disciplined enough to take the good from each of them. But I could see why someone would say that's too many cooks in the kitchen. Now, I think to Jalen's credit and to Nick's credit, they've taken kind of the best parts of everybody. So that's a good credit. But I don't know, John. I wonder this too about moving forward, and maybe I'm way off with this, but do you think there's maybe a plateau here that could be hit of the Eagles offensive coordinators always being poached? And what I mean by that is, like, early in Jalen's career as a second-round draft pick, as a guy who wasn't supposed to start or be this superstar that he's become, people around the league look at the success the offense had and say, oh, we got to get that coordinator. Let's get that coordinator. Versus the more we move through these coordinators and the more Jalen progresses into a veteran player, and like even this camp, it feels different. It's like it feels like Jalen has control. Do you think do you think it'll lessen how much credit the coordinators are getting? Not that it's a negative thing for them, but maybe it takes off every year they're either hired or fired. Like, look at Lamar Jackson, right? They've had an incredible offense basically every year. I don't think one of his offensive coordinators have been hired. I think he had Marty Morningweg, and then I think he had Greg Roman, and then I think he had Todd Monken, who he still has. And that's not to say that those guys aren't good coordinators, but I think there's just a plateau of, not everybody's looking to go and grab them because they don't have Lamar. I wonder if that could happen here with Kevin Petula, where I'm not going to say he's not going to be a candidate, but maybe it's less enticing to go and grab the guy, who's working in Philly, because you feel like Jalen is the reason for the success a little bit more so now than you did year one or year two.
Well, there's part of it. The Eagles have also hired, you bring up the Ravens offensive coordinators. There's also two things there. There's also been tremendous churn because they haven't reached their expectations. But they've also hired veteran guys who are like Vic Fangio is the best defensive coordinator in football. He's not a head coaching candidate.
Yeah, right. I see where you're going with that. Greg Roman, Todd Monken, Marty Morningweg. They're all older.
Well, Todd's a little bit different, but again, if they win the Super Bowl, you're going to hear Todd Monken's name. But Greg Roman, he's been there like twice, I think. Marty, Mark Trestman. Gary Kubiak was there at one. Jim Caldwell after he was ahead. All guys sort of. Gary Kubiak was on the down tick of being a head coach, like Vic. So that's part of it. And the Eagles have hired, young guys with ambition. Shane very young, Brian very young, Kellen very young, and now Kevin very young. And to your point about Kevin, no, if they win the Super Bowl, he's gone. He's going to be a head coach. He's going to be a head coach.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Now, just as easily, if they don't win the Super Bowl and it's like a bad exit, he might be Brian Johnson.
Yeah, that's the part that feels goofy to me. Like, it shouldn't be boom or bust every year.
It should be. You're right, but it is. Yeah, these organizations get way too much credit for making good decisions. And I'm not saying Kellen Moore doesn't deserve to be a head coach, because I think Kellen's a good coach, and I think he's going to do a fine job. Not this year; they're going to be bad, but I think ultimately, if they give him time, I think he's going to be fine. But yeah, I mean, if they don't go on their run, Kellen Moore isn't even a hot candidate because of what went on during the regular season. You know, he had been a hotter candidate, I would say, before he interviewed for the Eagles job when Nick got it. And he had multiple head coaching interviews until he left Dallas, and then he had to sort of rebuild. But yeah, I mean, that's what it is. And again, I bring up, and I know I hate when I bring up the Rams game and how close they were to going in a negative direction. But again, listen to what I'm saying. I'm not talking about the game. It happens all the time. If they lose that game, Kellen Moore's here. Simple as that. So Jalen Carter turned, in essence, if you want to, Jalen Carter turned Kellen Moore from second-year Eagles offensive coordinator to Super Bowl champion and head coach of the New Orleans Saints. He's not even getting a snip.
Mission check.
He's not even getting a snip as a head coach if they don't win. So yeah, Kevin's getting a job if they win. And by the way, I'm firmly on record saying I think they're going to have a better, more well-rounded offense this year, and I think Jalen Hurts is going to have a better season. Doesn't mean they're going to win the Super Bowl, because I think that the defense isn't going to be as good. This is a complimentary game, but I think Jalen's going to have a better season.
What do you think's next for Jalen? Do you think it's time for him to I don't want to say run less, because I like you always say, like, what are you going to take away a guy's skills? I mean, what's the point of that? But I do think he's smart enough to know, you know, if you want to play deep into your 30s or even into your 30s at all as a running quarterback, you're going to have to make sure all the other areas of your game are polished. Do you think he'll try and start to now? I think he has. People have seen since he got his big contract, he slid a little bit more. And, you know, we had one person in the comments one day who was like, you know, he's sliding. I don't like it. I'm like, really? You want your $50 million quarterback just running head first into, you know, in the linebackers and safeties? I don't really want him doing that. So I got no problem with him sliding. But do you think he starts to change that approach at all?
No, I don't think he thinks one iota about when he's 32 or 33.
Right.
You know, one thing I'm impressed by Nick Sirianni's ability as a head coach is to get, and I'm sure it doesn't work with everybody, but it works with the vast majority of players, is that whole mindset of all the cliches, being where your feet are, and, you know, don't think about tomorrow, think about today, get 1% better every day, blah, blah, blah. Like, to the point where, like, it's a waste of time. Closed circuits, all the TV guys out there. It's a waste of time to ask any Philadelphia Eagle, coach, player, executive, about something in the future. You're not getting an answer. You're getting the same answer. It's about getting better right now. It's about when the season starts. It's about week 1 against Dallas. Don't ask them about week 3 or about an upcoming opponent down the road. You're not getting an answer.
I mean, there's still things to analyze in the macro, no?
I'm just saying from their perspective. Right. No, we can do it. We do it all the time.
Right.
But what I'm trying to say is they truly believe it. That's what I'm amazed by Nick Sirianni, to get as many people on board with that mentality. Like, I don't think Jalen Hurts has thought one day in his life about what he's going to look like as a 33-year-old quarterback. I really don't. You know, he's so hyper-focused on getting better right now and about doing things and about being successful right now. And obviously he's financially set for life. Not that, you know, once you make that kind of money, you want to keep making that kind of money as long as humanly possible. But Yeah, it's pretty amazing the way he keeps everybody on the same page from that perspective. And that's where you brought up, which is the quote I love, and it was actually a Connor Barwin quote. The burden of leadership is repetition. Because, yeah, I roll my eyes at some of the Nick Sirianni cliches because I've heard them 150 times.
Right.
But they land because of that.
I mean, our opinions don't really matter because it's working.
Yeah, it lands because of that. So, no, and Saquon's the same way. He just talked about it. He's like, he's not thinking about touches and keeping himself good so he can play when he's 31. And I think for the most part, especially the key players, the really good players on this team, all have that same mindset. And it's pretty impressive. And I think it's, one of those, it's probably boring, but it's one of the secrets to their success. Because, I mean, as just a normal person, earlier in my career, you hear stuff like that and you go, yeah, right. You're thinking about 3 weeks down the road. Well, they're not. They're not. And, that's how you become successful, to compartmentalize that. One of the things I always used to, Jody found it hard to believe that they're not spending extra time on, even during the bye week. Like the assumption is, all right, get to work and do it. They don't do extra work. They take time off and recharge the batteries. Now, the coaching staff does some, self-scouting and things like that.
Yeah, right.
But the preparation for the next opponent coming off the bye starts the same way it would start during a regular week. And for whatever reason, people have a hard time believing that. But that's what it is. And that's the way they've set it up. And it's worked very well for them. So I don't think they're going to go away from that process.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that for sure. Good stuff there, Johnny McMullen and Jalen. Good stuff on the offensive coordinator. Last question on offense post minicamp. All right, mandatory minicamp in the rearview mirror now, everybody. We got about 5.5 weeks until the Birds will take the field for training camp. Guys, when training camp gets here, I don't even like saying it's training camp is here. It's the freaking season is here, baby. We go right through August, right through the preseason, right up until September 4th when the banner will drop and the Eagles will go belt the ass on the Dallas Cowboys at the Open. John, who's the biggest winner on offense after minicamp? Is it Kevin Patullo?
I don't think he's the biggest winner. When I think winner, I got to think player, and everybody's so entrenched on offense. I would go towards, guys who open people's eyes, and to me, it would be like a Terrace Marshall. Like you sit there and say, all right, that guy took advantage of a bunch of reps because AJ was limited, and not because of injury, but because I don't want to scare people, because the Eagles didn't want him working. Don't want
like
him
you just said. Yeah, they're not working.
Yeah. DeMonte spent most of the time working out away from the facility. So he got a bunch of first team reps, and now I don't even know if he fits because he doesn't play special teams. If you're a backup receiver, generally you have to play special teams. He was a star at LSU, so he didn't even play special teams in college. So I don't even know if he fits, but when you think about some of the backup receivers, just from the knowledge, and I think a lot of people don't think about, well, you got to do something else. You got to return kicks. You got to be on kickoff coverage. You got to block, like Johnny Wilson. I don't know if he has that special trait to make the back end of the roster, but if something does happen, all of a sudden he jumps to the forefront. And the Eagles wanted that type of player last year when they signed Devontae Parker. A lot of people forget, and Devontae just retired one day. So maybe they found that player. But, man, everybody's so entrenched, and the one guy who isn't entrenched is kinda entrenched, Tyler Steen, because, I think he's gonna be, barring injury again in training camp, I think he's gonna be the starting right guard. And I don't know, it could be a Isaac Seumalo situation in 2017 where, might be a little bit too early for him, and he doesn't play well early, and they make the move to Matt Pryor like they did with Wisniewski that year, the veteran player. I could see something like that happening, but I think he's going to be a star. Everybody's entrenched on offense. It's pretty amazing. And then on defense, there's plenty of guys, but Jalix Hunt, we talked about. Kaylee Ringo really closed out the spring on a high note. Jeremiah Trotter Jr., probably the biggest winner because they, in the situation they are right now, like he is the starting linebacker. Like he got every single first team rep, every single one. And that's what I expected. Well, I called it the spring and summer of Jeremiah Trotter because I knew he was going to get a bunch of, maybe I didn't expect 100%, but that's what it was.
And he looked the part, and I know you're not seeing much from a
Yeah, he did. That's nothing splashy, overall, I think. But that was the kind of we only saw 3 practices. B, they're trying to grow that underneath game just like they were trying to grow it last spring. And this time it looked a lot cleaner from the offensive perspective. Ball didn't hit the field that much. But it was mostly underneath stuff. And, Vic's defense will take you want to dump it off and rally and tackle, he'll take that all day. And I think Trotter did his job. So I would say he's the biggest winner and online to be a week 1 starter. Now, he's a week 1 starter because of injury, but nonetheless, week 1 starter.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that because I do have to go there on the Kobe Dean. We'll talk about that in just a second. John, I want to go to Keely Ringo for a second. All right. And everybody in the chat, I want you to know that I don't ask this question because I doubt Keely Ringo. I think this team is in a rare spot where they truly, as John pointed out in the opening question of today's show, they truly still have a roster that's capable to be in the conversation to win another Super Bowl this year. Has Keely Ringo earned the looks he's getting, or is it because they didn't add anybody? And when I say that, it's not that I doubt Keely. It's just that, it's not really the time to be letting somebody go and see if they take the job, right? Like we got a chance to go and win a Super Bowl. If you can get a corner that's going to make your team better, get the damn corner. And I don't know if they need that. Has Keely earned it, you think, or is it more just slotted in business, kind of business as usual?
Well, I think he earned it by the standpoint. Like I always say, I think people get hyper focused on the moment. I think he's earned it by the first 2 years he's been here and the confidence that the Eagles had to say, all right, this is it. This is his time. I think he's earned it from that perspective. Now, you can make the argument that they made the wrong evaluation and Slay still had plenty left in the tank. And, those are all valid arguments. Or, would Jair Alexander, somebody like that, be better in the short term? Probably, if he stayed healthy. You can make those types of arguments. But, yeah, I don't think they're just handing things over the players because they don't believe in players and, it's just because he's the next guy. I mean, did they want to save a little bit of money? Yes, but that's part of it. But, if they had nothing, ultimately their plan was they were going to move on from Dallas Goedert. That was the plan. And, they didn't get what they were able to, they didn't get anything in the draft from a perspective. I think that was a key part, how the board fell. And all of a sudden, things didn't work out on the trade market, and Dallas was willing to come down a little bit, and they had the reunion. So there's some malleability there if things can go in a negative direction. But Kelly was already in-house. Like, they had to go get a tight end. And I'm not talking about Kylan Granson or Harrison Bryant. They had to go get a tight end if they weren't going to move forward with Dallas Goedert. They didn't feel they had to go get a cornerback because of the upside of Kaylee Ringo. And, you get the insurance policy with the Dory Jackson, who, by the way, is a player I think they like a lot more than people realize. So they were able to do that. So there's always those contingencies still, and that's what Howie's good at. But no, they're very high on Kaylee Ringo.
Yeah, well, I think what you said too about Adoree, and I'll go there. I just met, somebody in the chat was just talking about it. Remember, guys, they did lose 2 cornerbacks. They lost Slay and Isaiah Rodgers. So, I don't know if, somebody said, well, why'd they sign Adoree if they were confident in Keely? Well, I think they did need still another body, and maybe Adoree's playing that Isaiah Rodgers role. At least that's how I see it. How do you see that, John?
Yeah, well, and Isaiah was a good player, and I'm glad he brought him up because, they're raving about him out in Minnesota, and he's going to be a starting corner.
Yeah, well, Slay was great last year, John, but he missed a good amount of time, and Isaiah was really good in the moments that he filled in.
Yeah, he was. But to the point of the commenter, I mean, Adoree's in the Temu group of signing. I'm trying to look at his exact number. Adoree, 1 year, $1.75 million.
I thought Adoree got a little more. Wasn't he the one that got a little bit more?
No, Aziz was the one.
Oh, Aziz, that's right. Okay.
I mean, yeah, they like him as an insurance policy. If they needed a corner, they would have just paid Slay. But they're confident in, because I think Slay would have took $10 million here to return.
Yeah, I definitely think so.
So yeah, they're very high on Kaylee Ringo.
Yeah,
I can tell you, AJ Brown's really high on Kaylee Ringo.
That's what I'm with you, John. That's what makes me the most excited about Kaylee Ringo. And I know how good he was when he played well in college. Again, I know college is a different game. I don't need to be told that, but I'm
for all those who think, well, it's teammate. No, AJ tells me the truth, because there are things I can't say. He does not just default to everybody's great.
Right, everybody's great. Exactly. Good stuff there. John, last question before our first commercial break. I'm going to welcome and thank everybody for being here, by the way. Here in June, we got 2 super chats we'll get to as well before our first break. Hit the like button, everybody. We appreciate all of you guys being here. 5.5 weeks till training camp. Full steam ahead after that, everybody. We're ready to rock, ready to go back and try and repeat as Super Bowl champions the Philadelphia Eagles are. Is Nakobe Dean still in the plans, John? I don't know, man. I like Nakobe Dean a lot, but to me, it looks bleak for him as a future in Philadelphia. What do you see there?
Yeah, I mean, he's in the plans this year, but I don't think it's going to be very difficult to find a path for him in 2026. So it depends how you look like.
Well, what if Trotter comes in and plays great, and then Jahad Campbell gets healthy by week 5 or 6?
Yeah, I think people forget how well Nakobe Dean played last year.
I know, but
now,
John,
again, health-wise, health-wise is the biggest issue, because he's had 2 significant leg injuries, and this one is what it is. It's destroyed the careers of certain players. I'm just saying, if the same guy shows up, which is a big if, but if he plays like he played last year, yeah, he's got nothing to worry about. He's a starting middle linebacker.
Yeah, big starting player. Yeah, I don't want people to think I don't think he was a damn good player last year. I'm just looking at the business and the, like for example, let me give you a better example. If Jeremiah Trotter Jr. plays like Oren Burks did in the playoffs last year after Nakobe got hurt, it'd probably be hard to take that guy off the field. Now, I'm not saying they wouldn't, but don't you think that would create a little bit of a dilemma? Kind of back to the dilemma of we have a cost-effective guy in Trotter that's getting significant reps right now, getting better, and we could have him for 3 years, or Nakobe Dean, who's probably going to leave the team after the season because we can't pay another linebacker. We have Munden, we got Bond, we got JAKIB Campbell. Like, I don't know if the future's there for Dean, and maybe that impacts the way they use him this year.
Well, I don't think the future is there for Dean again in 2026 because you just drafted Jihad and he'll be healthy by that point. And obviously the long-term goal is to get that interchangeable mix between Zach Bond and JAKIB Campbell. That's the long-term goal if they can get to it. And have sort of a different setup as far as third down with their versatility and usage, which you can't do with Nakobe or Jeremiah or Smile. So that's the long-term goal. Short-term, Vic has already said it. You know, he's the middle linebacker when he's healthy. The business stuff is already done for this year. Like he's here. Next year's the problem. So the business stuff doesn't affect this year. It affects 2026. That's why I brought up 2026. And to your point of Trotter playing like Oren Burks, well, Oren Burks isn't even here anymore. Now he's younger, more cost effective, but you know, Oren got 2 years, $5 million, I think. Not even here. But I do think there is, for whatever reason, and again, recency bias, dude had a really good season.
Really good. Yeah, no, I don't want to take away from that at all. He had a really good season.
And Vic loves him. Now, the biggest question of all is injuries. And what is he coming off that injury? Is he going to be the same guy?
Yeah.
I have no idea. But if he is, he's playing. And Vic will probably be pissed off when they do lose him after the year, but that's just where they are. They're not going to be able to pay him if he plays well. So I find it very hard to see a path where he's going to be here in 2026. But, you know, in fact, I was the one who asked him about Vic, about JAKIB Campbell, and what happens with Zach playing the mic. And he's definitely going to play the mic if it's JAKIB. I don't think there's any question. But there is some question with Trotter, like who's playing the mic and who's playing the will.
Right.
I think it still might be Zach playing the mic, but that doesn't fit as nicely. And basically, he talked about Zach can play either spot, just like with Cooper. He compared it to Cooper. It's basically what the other guy does. In other words, if Trotter can handle middle linebacker, probably the middle linebacker, but if he can't, Zach will be. And with JAKIB Campbell, as I said, he's probably not going to be the mic. So it's about the other guys more than it's about Zach. But then he threw in there until Nakobe comes back, because he's the fucking middle linebacker.
Right.
So again, injuries are the only deterrent to that end game for this season.
Yeah. After that, we'll see what ends up happening. Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. Let's get to a couple super chats. Again, I want to thank everybody for being here today. Great crowd as always. JD3 checking in with $10. Thank you, JD3. All super chats this time of the year are extra appreciated. Not that all of them aren't appreciated, but we're in June, and we appreciate, obviously, your support of the channel as we give you content live all through the off season. So thank you very much, JD3. Anytime play calling was bad last year, people said Nick was calling plays. When it was good, it was all Kellen. Will Nick collaborate in play calling with Patullo?
Boy. Yeah, it'll be the same
super chat for Johnny Mac right there.
It'll be the same thing, JD. When it looks bad, it'll be Nick, and when it looks good, it'll be Kevin. Same thing. Same thing. And it's wrong last year, and it's wrong. It'll be wrong this year, and it'll be wrong in perpetuity. Um, the idea that Kellen or Shane or Nick or anybody is sitting by himself building up that call sheet is probably the most ridiculous assumption by fans. You know, it's a process that everybody's involved in. Kevin's been involved in for years and years and years. Everybody builds the offense. You build up all the best 90%, probably more, probably 95. Let's use Jalen's number. 95% of the work on play calling is done during the week before the game starts. Everything is right there on the play sheet. Every situation of what you want to pull. Now, the other 5% is still important because some guys have a better feel, and Vic's like a great example of this on defense. He's got the best feel to pull out something in certain situations. Shane had a great feel for it. To pull out the right thing that is on that sheet in the right situation. But what doesn't happen is nobody's going off to the sideline, calling the timeout and going off script and off book and just drawing up plays. And, 95% of it is during the week. And it's already built in. And then, the difference is Kevin is the guy who's got the final say. Now, Nick's the head coach of the team. And if he just decides he wants something at a certain point, he has done it with Shane. He has done it with Brian. He has done it with Kellen, and he'll do it with Kevin. But he doesn't do it a lot. And he doesn't want to do it. And he wants those guys to be in a position to handle it because he wants to handle an overriding, management of the game. So, yeah, I mean, you're right. That's exactly what happened. And by the way, I predicted that. When things went badly, it was going to be Nick. And when things went well, it was going to be Kellen. Same thing's going to happen this year because people think Nick's a bad play caller because he gave it up. And, it is what it is. Yep, people overrate play call.
Yeah, they do. No doubt about it. Dank Bird Gang checking in. What's up, Dank? Member for 23 months. That's a lot of time. Thank you, Dank. Appreciate you, brother. Dare I say, New Heights is better than Exciting Mike's podcast. We got some podcast crime right here, Dank, with giving a little love to the Kelseys over Cooper and Reed. I haven't listened really to either, so I can't.
Yeah, I can't. I get clips sent to me. I see certain clips, but yeah, I don't. I mean, Jason's more entertaining. I mean,
Jason is very entertaining.
Yeah.
Honestly, Travis kind of is too on the pod.
I mean,
I've
those
seen
guys
clips with you. I don't like seek out the full shows or anything, but I do watch the clips.
I mean, Reed and Cooper are kind of, and again, I haven't seen the show, but they're kind of understated guys.
Yeah, Cooper is. When he asks questions, like he asked Zach Bond, and he's just like, "What drives you this year?" It's just like real.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I assume Eagles fans want to hear from the players, and if they're interviewing Zach Bond, I'm sure they want to see it. But yeah, I would say, I mean, Jason's one of the most entertaining people I've ever met in my life. So that's a tough bar to cross to get out.
Thanks for the message, brother. Scott Squad checks in. $2. Thank you, Scott Squad. Dean was the play caller plus best tackler last year. That's for sure.
Well, he ain't the play caller. That's Vic. He imports what Vic wants done on the field.
Right. But that's still an important job.
I mean, he's a communicator. And it's an important role. But it goes from Vic to Bobby King to N'Kobe Dean. And yes, it is an important role. And then Zach took it over and did fine.
Does it go to Bobby King first?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought it was Vic in his ear.
Bobby's the one that's sort of, because Big is upstairs, so sometimes there's, and it can be Vic directly, but sometimes there's stuff that has to come from the field. So, as with everything, it's a very collaborative process. But if there's something that has to be, one of the things about, you see a lot of defensive coordinators or offensive coordinators on the field and some up in the booth. Vic likes the booth. But there's some things you have to be on the field to actually impart to the players, obviously. Yep. And that's Bobby's generally responsibility.
Got it. Scott, thank you, brother. Appreciate it. East Coast Rico checking in. J-Mac, what makes you say stop it the most? That's a good question right there.
Well, that was a good one. Play calling is one. All the mislabeling, that bothers me. The constant yearning for big names bothers me. The big name traps.
Which is very prominent here in Philly. Every time a name comes up, we want them.
Yeah, those are some are just unrealistic. So, and I've gotten a lot of pushback. Let people have fun. I don't care what you can have fun, but if,
right. This is your show, John.
I mean, my goal is to try to help people learn about the team. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you, so you can have fun. I mean, so there's a bunch of things, but those are some of the things.
Good stuff, East Coast Rico. Thank you, brother. Thank you, everybody, for the super chats today. Kimberly Sirico. What's up, Kimberly? I hope you're doing well. Appreciate you being here, as always, Kimberly. She says, Coop, Vaughn, Reed all played quarterback in high school. There's a recipe to this. Travis Hunter was not the first. Versatility is the key, not position. Move them around. Look at that comment from Kimberly.
Well, a lot of guys, a lot of really good players played quarterback at some point in there because they're, when you're in high school, a lot of times you're just best guy on the field and, they're trying to get them involved as much. But yeah, a lot of guys have a history with quarterback. I do think it helps. I talked a lot about that with Greg Ward over the years, who was a high level college quarterback. Really, I mean, he was a hell of a college quarterback, and he had a knowledge of the offense that most receivers don't have, and I think it helped him develop into a decent career as an NFL receiver, even though he didn't have the traits, the typical athletic traits you need to be a receiver in the NFL. He lasted for whatever it was, 5-6 years, got a pension, nice little career for himself. And I think a lot of that had to do with his sort of ability to understand. And I always talk about Malcolm Jenkins, not necessarily quarterback, versus Minkah Fitzpatrick, because, Miami wanted to turn Minkah Fitzpatrick into a Malcolm Jenkins-like player who was sort of a Swiss Army knife. And he didn't want to do it. He didn't want the responsibility. He just wanted to play free safety.
Right.
And they traded him and he's one of the best free safety. He's been one of the best, great player. But he didn't want to do it. He just wanted to focus on what he excelled on.
Right.
And Malcolm loved moving around. He loved it. It challenged him. It just made him more invested. He learned the entire defense. And you're seeing some of the same things with Cooper early in his career. I'm not going to say he's going to turn into Malcolm, but Vic certainly has confidence that he could do anything in the secondary. And the more you do that, the better feel you have, because a lot of guys, I mean, it's like, all right, what's your role? Defensive tackle, your role. You don't know the roles of other guys. Jalen Carter talks about it all the time. He's like, I don't know what those guys do. And there's certain guys who more offense, I would say, than defense, but there's certain guys and the Eagles want Cooper to be that type of player. in the front seven, they want Zach and JAKIB to be that type of player. Just a few guys around the league. Metellus, I always talk about Josh Metellus. He plays everywhere. Those guys are rare, and it's pretty impressive.
Yep, good stuff there. Good answer there. Jason A-Team checking in. Member for 11 months. A-Team, thank you, brother. 11 months, man. We appreciate your membership and your support as always, Jason A-Team. He checks in and says, just shouting out the JAKIB fam, JAKIB for life, elite. Thank you, Jason. How do we feel about the back end of the wide receivers like Anais and all them? Who do you think is a cut candidate that didn't get cut last year? Yeah, so Jason, if you weren't here earlier, John did mention those back end wide receivers. John, your response to Jason.
Yeah, I think it's a lot. That's one of those things. It's like roster building 101. It's like, what do you want? Do you want just a backup receiver? Because then I think guys like Terrace Marshall and Danny Gray are better than Anais Smith and Johnny Wilson. But typically, you only got 53 guys. You only got, 46 on game day. So you have to do something else. If A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Jahan Dotson are healthy, you're not getting any reps to play wide receiver. So you got to help somewhere else. In Anais' case, as a kick returner. In Johnny's case, with a run-heavy team, he's a good blocker. He can play a little bit on special teams as well, coverage. Whereas Terrace Marshall was a star at LSU. He didn't even play special teams in college. And he hasn't played special teams in the pros because he was supposed to be a big-time receiver. Hasn't worked out for him. And even Danny Gray was a third-round pick coming out of college. He was a star in college. And he's not a special teams player. Now, he might be able to help a little bit as a kick returner. So maybe he can open some eyes that way. But you generally have to do something else. So it's sort of like, what flavor does Howie Roseman want for this team? To me, they'll want Johnny Wilson for that blocking ability because they are what they are on offense. So that's 4. And then you're probably going to keep 5. And that becomes, do you want Terrace Marshall's upside in case AJ or Devontae get hurt? Do you want Danny Gray's speed maybe? Do you want Anais Smith's kick return ability? Well, one thing about Anais, if he doesn't catch the football better in training camp, he's going to get cut this time. And he has. And he was much better. He was much more comfortable in the spring. And there weren't any noticeable drops. He was dropping the football every day last year. And he only made the team because he was a 5th-round pick. He didn't deserve to make the team. And this year he's calmed down. But it's sort of like, what do you want? What role do you want to fill? But they have much more talent deeper down the roster than they have in recent years at wide receiver, I would say.
Good stuff there. Appreciate everybody for giving us our super chats today and the comments in the chat. We appreciate all of you guys. We're going to take our first commercial break. When we get back, I got a couple more questions on minicamp. We'll close up that conversation. And then we got Chris Franklin joining us here in hour number 2. So we'll have Chris Franklin coming up. Appreciate all you guys. Hit that like button. We'll be right back on Birds 365 in 3 minutes.
Welcome to the Jet Setters and the High Rollers, to the Shot Takers and the Tastemakers. Welcome to the Viewfinders, the Thrill Seekers, and the Night Owls. Welcome to everything you could possibly want on one 5-mile island. Welcome to the Wildwoods. Book your stay today.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Major Perry's daughter was the victim of a horrific accident caused by someone else's negligence.
If you don't find the right counselor, law firm that you're looking for, you will get lost in the wilderness.
Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm at 215-458-2222 and find out why they say, "We got this."
In our hometown, we all look out for each other. We go the extra mile to lend a helping hand. We step up to keep our communities going strong. And at Independence Blue Cross, we're here to keep you going strong. We've been deeply rooted in our communities for more than 85 years. And that connection to members has earned us our spot as the #1 health insurer in the region. So while you look out for your neighbors, know IBX is always looking out for you.
Your financial future is on the line. Are you ready for what's next? At Leone & Company Wealth Management, we help young professionals, business owners, and pre-retirees navigate the complexities of building and protecting wealth. For young professionals, we'll help you grow your wealth, plan for your future, and make the most of your hard-earned dollars. For business owners, we provide strategies to protect your company, manage risks, and create a lasting legacy for both your business and personal wealth. For pre-retirees, we'll design a plan to secure your retirement, ensuring you can live comfortably and confidently in your next chapter. Whether you're just starting out, managing a thriving business, or preparing for retirement, we're here to help you take control of your financial future. The first consultation is on us. Get the advice you need without the cost. Let's make your financial vision a reality. Take the next step. Scan the QR code to schedule your free consultation today. And of course, go Birds.
Welcome to the Jet Setters and the High Rollers, to the Thrill Seekers and the Night Owls. Welcome to everything you could possibly want on one 5-mile island. Welcome to the Wildwoods. Book your stay today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Friday edition of Birds 365 here, June 13th. We're about 5.5 weeks away from training camp. Spring work officially in the rearview mirror, everybody, as we prep for the season. I'll give you guys a countdown. Once I get to John here, I'll look it up. I think we're probably around 80 days, somewhere in that range, 82, 83 days away from the banner drop. So moving right along, moving very quickly. Johnny Mac, let's have a little bit of fun on this Football Friday. We got 15 minutes until Chris Franklin gets here. All right, we're going to do a bold prediction, and we're going to do, if you could add, we'll start with this one. If you could add one player right now, who would you add, why, and where would you add, Johnny Mac?
Well, I would still add an edge rusher, but it wouldn't be one of the big guys. Trey Hendrickson's gonna. I still think he's gonna play with Cincinnati. And TJ Watts certainly is going to play with Pittsburgh. And the Eagles aren't in a position to add a $35 million player. So, you know, it would be somebody, but it's going to be a CJ Gardner-Johnson like trade, I would think, of somebody who maybe hasn't quite lived up to the hype and is coming to the end of his rookie contract. And, you know, I've talked about Jahan Dotson here as a sneaky trade possibility. We just talked to some of the, you know, Terrace Marshall has a phenomenal camp, and they say, well, this guy's pretty good. He's pretty talented. He's pretty good. You know, Jahan's not going to be here next year. He's a good player. So, you know, can you flip him and get something?
Right.
Not that they need draft picks. So it's very unlikely. But that type of player, Jahan Dotson type of player at the edge rushing position. Now, I promise I'm going to do my homework. I haven't done it. I can't give you a name yet. People have brought up Trayvon Walker. He's not going in. That I'm not talking about, again, former number 1 overall
Yeah,
pick
I
in
don't
the
know who
draft.
the heck is in that camp, like the Anais.
There's always somebody.
The Jahan Dotson type of player at edge.
There's always somebody. It might be a former 2nd round pick or third, not necessarily the 16th overall pick,
Right.
but CJ, that type of guy at the edge rusher position. I think that's still the more likely, but even that, I'm much more confident. When Lane Johnson brings up Josh Uche and Jalix Hunt performs the way he did, I'm much more confident after the spring than I was before the spring. In safety, I don't see the need to add the Justin Simmons type of player. I don't see the need to add the Jair Alexander type of player at cornerback. So I'm still on edge rusher, but it's got to be an under the radar guy. And maybe when Chris is here, I'll try to come up with a couple names, but it's a lot of young players who probably haven't gotten the opportunity and maybe just need an opportunity.
You feeling any better about the Temu signings at edge? I am after I heard Lane Johnson give Josh Uche a little bit of love, Johnny Mac. I don't know why, but that made me feel a little bit better. All right. Maybe it's well,
most of my excitement goes with Jalix still more than.
Well, I have Jalix in my head as the starter.
Well, so do I. And then I think Uche. I think Lane's endorsement, and not only Lane, but also Zach Vaughn's endorsement, have jumped him in front of Ojulari for me. I don't know if that's the case for the Eagles, because Ojulari's the guy they gave $3.5 million, which isn't a lot, but significantly more than.
Could that also be dictated, though, John, by other teams? Like maybe they really wanted the player, and there was another team that was giving them 2 or 3 or 2.5, and they were just like, our edge rusher's too thin. We need this dart throw. Let's just pay him the extra money.
Yeah, I doubt it, because, to me, it's like, I think he could have gotten more somewhere else. Probably could have gotten 2 years, but I don't know if that's even the case. They like the player coming out of college. I just think they liked the player and they thought he had a higher upside. Maybe he does. Maybe he does, but maybe I'm putting too much emphasis on Lane's endorsement. And, when you're speaking off the cuff, sometimes, all right, they're asking me about edge defenders.
There's like 10 of them out there.
Yeah. Even Vic couldn't come up with the other guys. the KJ Henrys of the world, the O'Shawn Mathises of the world, and the other guys. So, maybe I'm putting too much on that, but I didn't like what I saw from Ojulari in coverage, which is the rare, but I think they all look like fishes out of water for the most part.
Except for Jalix, probably, who has that safety background.
Yeah, that does help. That does help. And he did look the best in dropping in a go, which makes a lot of sense. But I don't know. I'm not as high on Ojulari as most people. I think he's undersized. He's injury prone. 20-point scorer on a bad NBA team. I get Eric Wilson vibes, but as edge rusher. People get enamored by the note. Well, he had 6 sacks if he could do this. 6 sacks on a team, a garbage team. It's like somebody's got to score 20 points.
It's true.
In a figurative standpoint.
I'm feeling way more I don't know. Maybe it's false confidence. Maybe it's just getting closer. But I do feel like Jalix Hunt and Nolan Smith could provide what the starters provided last year. Maybe not to that level, but good enough that your defense isn't suffering because of them at all. I really think that. I think Jalix is going to be a good player, and I think Nolan could be effectively what Josh Sweat was last year, with setting the edge, a 3-down player, and he can get after the quarterback as well.
Yeah, I from what Nolan's going to stay on the left side for the most part. So, Josh was more the right side. So that's a little bit different, which is kind of weird because, from a size standpoint, at least old school thinking, but again, that's old school. The left end was the base end. That was the run support guy, but that's in the old days. The right end was the weak side pass rusher. That was the pass rusher. That's why left tackles got paid all the money they got paid. Now there's pass rushers all over the place, so it doesn't matter. So that's probably more old school thinking. But Josh is just, bigger, stronger. They got a bunch of undersized guys.
Jalix could grow into his body though, and be not so undersized. I think he's got a bigger, taller frame. No, I mean he's like 6'3", 6'4", isn't he?
Yeah, he's just under 6'4". He's got long arms. I think that's mostly, and he does have the frame to gain more weight. But I always say Josh is, like I said, if Hollywood, if they're doing a movie and they say we need an edge rusher, they're picking Josh Sweat. He's 6'5". He's freakishly long. He's 265. He's just everything you want. And that's why I think a lot of people don't know he was like the number one recruit in the country coming out of high school. Number one. And a lot of that is, and he had that horrible leg injury when he was in high school. So, I mean, 5-star recruit. And I still remember the first day I met Josh Sweat. And that's back in, the pre-COVID days in 2018 when you can get guys coming off the field at rookie camp. And I still remember interviewing him right outside the door of the back of the NovaCare complex. And that was my first thought. Like, I don't know if this guy can play, but he looks like he can play. There's certain guys who just, Nick calls them first guys off the bus. He's a first guy off the bus guy, Josh Sweat.
I still think Nolan can be that. No, I mean, even if he doesn't look like that guy.
Well, not from a physical standpoint.
Well, no, not from. I'm not saying he looks like him or is the same build as him.
I'm saying
on the field.
Nolan is not a first guy off the bus guy. That's what I'm saying.
Well, but can he be on the field? Can he set the edge? Can he rush the passer? Can he stop the run? Can he do what he needs to do for the defense to be successful? I think he can.
Well, he did it for a half a season, and the Eagles are very high on him.
But he also had Josh Sweat with him. Can he do it without Josh Sweat out there?
I don't know. It's a big question. Not only Josh Sweat, but Milton Williams and Jalen Carter. I mean, the four-man rush at the end of last season was Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, Milton Williams, and Josh Sweat. And 2 of them are gone. And they're both really good players. But I was just speaking about Josh's physical presence.
Yeah, I get what you were saying. He definitely is built. It's like Keely Ringo at corner,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's literally the prototypical build for a cornerback. All right, John, last question here before we get to Chris Franklin. Give me one bold prediction that you actually believe. I'm going to give you mine because I want to just set the, where I'm going with it. I think Jalix Hunt leads the team in sacks this year.
Yeah, that is bold. Nolan should. I mean, if he's healthy, and he's going to be healthy. I mean, there's no doubt that he's going to be ready for training camp. I think it would be a bad thing if Nolan doesn't, unless it's, Nolan's got 10 or 11 and Jalix has like 15. Then it's not a bad thing. But I don't think
Oh
he's.
no, I'm John. To your credit, you've been talking about this for years. That sacks aren't everything. Like years. I
Oh
remember
yeah.
you used to.
Well, that's another one of my.
Someone
Stop
asked,
it.
yeah, what's your
Stop
stop?
it.
That used to be your
Stop it.
biggest when Jody was the host. That you guys would fight about sacks and pressures like crazy. But I'm kind of like over them. Not that they don't matter.
Good.
Not that I don't
If
want
you talk
them,
about pressure stuff.
yeah, I just want a guy that can play the position well. Do it.
Yeah,
well.
I mean, I think people are, and I'm high on Alex Hunt, but I think people are skipping steps. Like Nolan's way ahead of Alex Hunt right
Yeah,
now.
like I know that's why it's bold, John. I'm admittedly skipping.
Yeah, that is very bold. I don't think that. I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to be better than he should be at this stage. And I think a lot of that is because he is so physically gifted. I think sometimes you just go out there and you play and you get better by playing. And I think that's going to be the case with Alex Hunt. But I think Nolan has to be a better player. And I think he will be. I think he is a better player. That's partially why. And he needs to be. He needs to be a star, Nolan Smith. He's a very important part of this team, Nolan Smith.
No, he is. He is. You have a bold prediction for me or what?
I don't know how, but it's not that bold, but I said it pretty consistently. And I said it in this show. Jalen Hurts will have a better season this year. And I think most people, because he won the Super Bowl, think he had his best season. So it's more of a, I wouldn't call it bold. I'm trying.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. Jalen Hurts will have a better season. That's like the opposite of bold, John. That's like a mute prediction.
No, well, it isn't, because people are uneducated on he didn't have the best season last year. That's the bold part of it. Like, people, damn it, you got me going down this route. Because he won the Super Bowl, they think he was phenomenal. And he was not. He had his worst season from start to finish. And he will be much better. And he might not win the Super Bowl. So maybe I'll add that. He probably won't win the Super Bowl, but he will perform better individually. Still not bold, but
that's all right. I'll take. I didn't expect the J-Mac prediction to be overly bold. Yeah, I know that's not typically your style, which is fine.
How about Kaylee Ringo's the week one starter, and he finishes the season as the starter?
I like that. That's a good prediction. I think that's fair. I mean, not everybody's sold on that.
And he's fine. No issues with Kaylee Ringo. There's going to be some growing pains, but it's not getting benched. Week 1 starter, week 17 starter, week 18 actually.
Who's a guy who could start the season and get benched?
Tyler Steen.
Yeah, that's true. That's a perfect one. Yeah, that's right. That's the one you predicted a little bit earlier, that Tyler Steen would start, and then we'd have Matt Pryor in there by what'd you say, week 4, week 6 or something?
Something like that. That's what happened with Isaac. They jumped the gun, and Isaac eventually turned into a very good player, but they started him too early, and it was pretty ugly. And they said, all right, going to give him a little breath, go with a veteran. I could see that happening.
Yeah, me too. Me too. We'll see what ends up happening. Great show today so far. We got Chris Franklin coming up. I want to thank everybody in the green room. Got one chat to get to before we get to Chris Franklin. Brian Fleming, what's up, B. Flem? He says, what is J-Mac doing for this break before camp? Are you grilling, hanging out with Ben Van Sumeren and McCord, making the pilgrimage to Minnesota to see the Vikings?
Definitely not a pilgrimage to Minnesota. I did my time there. I got paroled.
Yeah, it's like still 30 degrees probably in Minnesota.
Yeah, I got paroled. But it is, for 2 weeks in Minnesota, it is really nice. In the spring and summer, you just got to get the right 2 weeks, and you can get out on some of the lakes. But no, I've done my time there, so no on that. I always grill, so that's built into.
I've been having grill issues, Johnny, man. I get the Blackstone, the burn, and something's wrong with my burners. I took the thing apart, I scrubbed it, I cleaned it, I did everything. I still turned it on the grill. Still messed up. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
You were propping up the Blackstone. I was thinking about it because I got to get. I don't
It
have
is
to get.
nice, though, man.
I
When
have-
it works, it's nice.
Yeah, I see it's easier because but I like the challenge of the greats too.
Yeah.
You got to
Well, what
cook
do you
things
use? Like a
properly.
Weber charcoal?
No, I'm a gas guy, but
You're a gas guy. Okay.
I still like the greats. I like to be challenged.
Yeah, I got one with the greats too, but good stuff there. Johnny Mac grilling out this summer. Brief Phlegm, thanks for the super chat, brother. Thank you all for the super chats, the likes, the shares, the comments. All right, we appreciate all of it. Let's go to our main man, Chris Franklin, joining us here on Birds 365. We haven't talked to Chris in a little bit. I'm looking forward to seeing my main man, Chris Franklin. Follow him at C Franklin News on X and read all his work at nj.com. Chris, happy Football Friday, brother. How you doing?
I'm hungry now. I always talk about barbecue and grilling and
Yeah.
everything. Thanks. Just kidding. I'm doing
Chris,
great. How you guys?
do you have any skill on the grill? I'll tell you this, and I mean this with respect. I look at you, I see middle of the pack talent on the grill. Am I right or am I wrong?
Wow.
I think when you look at the draft services you're looking at, that was Mel Kiper-ish on that one. Say answer door on that one. Nah, I got good skills on the grill.
All right,
man.
all right.
Yeah.
Insulting.
I thought you were, I was hoping you
That's
would say I was way
insulting.
wrong.
Oh,
That ain't now if you get like D Gunn, he's like the #1 pick on the grill. Yeah.
I'm not. Nobody's touching him. The way
Like
all different things smoking. Nah, nobody's touching him right now.
I'm like a day 3 guy with upside. Maybe you trade up to get me on day 3. maybe you Kaylee Ringo me. My love of grilling is to get away from everybody else. So some
sense.
solitude.
Give me a late first, early second. I'm not going to say I'm like a pit master. I'm not any one of those guys too, but I'm my way around.
All right. A lot of upside with Chris Franklin. Never doubt. That was insulting, Zander. That was insulting.
I didn't mean to insult you, Chris. I wasn't sure. Sometimes you look at a guy and you're like, that guy can grill, but a steak, everything. I didn't see it, but maybe I'm wrong.
I'm going to go off of this now. Just reflect and sit in the corner and just think about what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
No, you got to get the grill out is what you got to do. And then you got to tweet me a picture of it. And then I'll have to eat my words publicly to the Birds 365 community.
But I don't, like that's another, like D-Gon will do videos and pictures. Like I've never been a picture guy for my food. Like people go to restaurants and they take pictures of what they order. I'm like, that's not for me.
Oh yeah, that and video too. Whatever one it is, you got to share the experience with everybody. That's what social media was about.
If I'm eating with my family, my sister's got this huge Instagram account that they have, and it's great. They're really awesome at it. But they got to film like everything before we. It's like don't eat. We got to film first. I'm like, oh, all right. So I'm John. That's my world right there, man.
Yeah, I don't want anybody knowing where I am either. They can GPS you down.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Put the metadata. Come on now. Androids. You gotta use it. Put the metadata, man.
Right. When you're doing that reflecting, Chris Franklin, how much reflecting goes on about the Eagles and their defense and all the changes?
There's some things I look at. It has me a little like, all right, this might be another slow start. In that one, I look certainly at the secondary. You mentioned Keely Ringo. Basically, you get that outside corner besides Quinyon Mitchell. Like, even if you put Hooper there, it's almost like it's more of the trepidation. We haven't seen it, so it's like you got the reservations for it. So I look at that. I look at Nkuba. Like, if he winds up being a starting safety, whoever's at that starting safety, and then I look at the depth at the edge rusher itself. Like, I feel confident in Nolan Smith. I feel confident in Jalen Hunt. And even if you have to use your hot Campbell from there, like I've seen enough of like his game, I think translates well to his defense is when you get to the Zizo Delari, if he's going to stay on the field of up and not get injured, or Josh Uche. Like we saw against the Eagles, it's like, wow, all right, he's not that bad. Or you look a couple years ago, but other than that, it's like cricket. So those are the things I'm worried about in that defense.
Yeah. Vic had mentioned all the changes. And last year going in at this time, people were saying the same thing. Like, what is this defense going to be? And all of a sudden it takes off. But I don't know if that's something you can count on year after year after year. Like we look at this offense and we say, all right, 10 of 11 starters back. They're going to be pretty good. It's a matter of how good. And part of it is just contracts, and those guys were entrenched. And the defensive guys are coming contract-wise with Carter and Smith and Mitchell and DeJean down the road. So it'll change a little bit in the coming years, but to assume Moro Ujoma is going to have the jump Milton Williams had, to assume Kaylee Ringo is going to play up to the level of Darius Slay, to assume Trotter's going to play like N'Kobe Dean and Makuba is going to play like CJ GJ. Boy, when you think about it that way, it's like, is it possible? Anything's possible.
Yeah, anything's possible. I think a little bit. I think you look at the coaching staff and you look at the raw talent guys. And the coaching staff, we look at Christian Parker and his history of developing guys and making sure the right thing. Because I remember a couple of years ago when you're asking the Broncos general manager at the combine, hey, what do you think about Christian Parker? He's said he's had a lot of he's helped a lot out. And he's very underrated in terms of his personnel, helping the personnel process. So he knows these guys in and out. You look at his track record, Patrick Surtain. Well, I'll take that. I'm not saying
I'll take that.
Yeah.
Can we get Patrick Surtain? Yeah.
So you look at the stuff that these guys have, and you look at the actual talent these guys have. The only thing when you look at, I'll stick with the secondary. This one. You look at Keeley. I just don't want to be as handsy if he gets beat off the line initially, so that we see because you know how flag happy this league can be when it comes to legal contact. I just want him to be controlled in his hands and not panic if he gets beat off the line. And he's got good recovery speed, in my opinion. That's why I look at it that way. So, yeah, I think that I don't have to trip. I think that tough schedule plays a role in it. That's just a gauntlet going in front out that. So I think that's where it starts slow, and I think we'll see almost the same type of this defense is what's going on with this one. This team is going crazy. This is a letdown, a hangover. That as soon as they're young guys, and so once they start to, and then all the new fits, once they start to know how each other plays off each other, I think we'll see an improvement probably around week 4, week 5.
What do you think of that edge rusher room, Chris? We were thinking about adding to that edge rusher room. I don't know how you feel about it. You think Jalix and Nolan, assuming they're going to be the 2 starters, is that enough for this defense to, have a real run at trying to repeat as Super Bowl champions, or is that going to cost them? What do you think?
I think it'll be able to hold them steady at least for that time being. The good thing, I think, I look at Nolan. I have no qualms with Nolan at all. I think I look at him. I'm like, okay. Yeah, he's starting to he really took off in the middle of last year. And I'm starting to see it more and more. He's a little more confident. He's playing that. I hate saying it. I'm not caught myself saying it. High motor. Yeah, he plays that stuff. That's the stuff with. So I look at him and it's fine. I think it's fine. Jalix, I think it's more just a matter of just him getting more playing time and just seeing what he did well last year. And when he was thrown in there, because Bryce Huff, I see it. So everybody was looking better than Bryce Huff at the time. So I look at him. I look at his development. I think he's going to do a lot better in terms of that. I just worry about the depth, and I really worry about depth in terms of if they don't have Ojulari there for a while, if they don't get Uche there sitting there, do you maybe move Jomo in the sense that you play them more on a rundown? If these guys can't play runs, they get worn down because they're not big in stature. There's no solid bigger guy, and that changes with this type of league. It's more like the odd man look, so you don't have the lighter guys on the outside, but. I think that's one of the things. They're not getting Trey Henderson. They're not getting Trey or a guy like that. But they have enough tools where if they need another rotation guy, they got enough draft picks. They can throw at a team and go, you know what? Yeah, let's get somebody in here to fill this in, and you run with that.
Well, if they struggle against the run, Vic's going to roll out that 6-man front. That's how he's going to stop it. Which he did in New Orleans last year. Remember that game? That was quite the game early in the season. There was a lot of panic early in the season. Dallas Goedert, the Keystone Cops play, saved them in that game that ran into each other. They did shut down that running game. I think New Orleans was averaging 200 plus yards. It's like 3 games, but whatever. And he rolled out that 6-man front. And I think, it was interesting. We asked Vic, a couple of weeks ago, we asked him, when did you know that this was going to be a really good defense? And he said probably week 6, week 7. So it took him that long to say, all right, we're pretty good. So I think to your point of there might be some hiccups early. I think people should be prepared for that. I think there were some hiccups early last year, and I think people forget that. So I can see that part of it happening. You were talking about the secondary and developing players and Christian Parker, all true. What do you think's happened with Sidney Brown? Just not a bit for, like, everybody seems to forget about Sidney Brown. He's getting the most first team reps, but everybody seems to Makuba. Just he's a big guy. Sidney's one of my favorite people on this team. You know Sidney.
Yeah.
Great dude. Why do you think it doesn't resonate?
I think it's two things. I think it's scheme and then it's availability. I think it's scheme wise, there fits in there what I think his in the past he's been able, well, at least in college, he was able to cut off the read routes, and he did well that way too. I don't know what it is. Maybe it has to do with the availability and the injury, getting those reps actually in live game action, whereas he's not able to do that as much or effectively. I like what you like personally. I like what you can do. Put him in the box, a physical guy near the line. You can put him out there. I think as a to be able his anticipation, stuff like that. I just look at when you have, say, put CeeDee Lamb out there in the slot and he's forced to roll down, then I think that's where I think Vic has his trepidations a little bit. And then the injury history, we've seen him miss as many games as he has in the past. Not his fault, obviously, because try, just a matter has happened. I think they just rolled out. They want somebody that can be out there a little bit more as well too. So if anything, I think this offseason is used to say, okay, what do I actually have in Sidney? How does he play and get these looks? So you get him out early, especially in these OTAs and minicamp, and see what he can do if he's able to do up to it. And then training camp and go, all right, I've seen this here. Let me tinker with this one here and just make it an open competition from here on out. But I think it's more of a almost like a get to know you, I think, in terms of Sidney and Vic and seeing what he can do.
I'm curious there because do you think, real quick, Chris, do you think Reed Blankenship is a lock to be re-signed?
I think it depends on the money. Obviously, with everything comes to money. I think he's a high priority because you keep going back and you looking like, okay, see this too. His ability to play center field and I think, especially with the production too, and safety is very, very hard in the system to play. And then you don't want to keep rotating around. I know you have the draft picks to replace him if you want to get like one of the top guys and move up and get basically do whatever you want in 2026 to replace him. But I still think that safety is very, very important in the system, and you're asking them to do a lot. And that's why I'm with Nkuba. I know he's starting this for two. I think it's going to be a learning curve early on with them too. Middle linebacker safety in this system is really tough. So
yeah, I'm just wondering. I'm wondering if we're overlooking like Sidney Brown, like John just said, where it's like maybe Sidney Brown and Makuba is who they're thinking. Because look, I love Reed Blankenship, and I happen to think that they're going to pay him, but I am cognizant of what's coming and who you have to pay. Cooper, Quinion, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith. Now Jalen Hunt is turning into like all these different pieces. It wouldn't blow my mind if they didn't sign Reed Blankenship. I wonder.
I'm going to give another not so bold prediction.
All right, let's hear it.
Reed Blankenship gets his extension before week 1.
Nice.
Chris, you know how they do that? 1 year it was Jordan Mailata. They always do one extension, usually a couple days before the regular season. Maybe that's going to be Reed this year. That's my prediction.
I like that. I'll take that.
I can see that. Maybe Reed, maybe I don't know. I think it's going to be a couple guys. You see, like you normally go up, like you could tell it's a theme during the day when we get these certain guys here. Like I saw a couple weeks ago, when the cornerbacks they were there.
Oh yeah, you can predict the themes are easy to predict these days.
Oh yeah, I think there might be a theme where you see maybe you see Jordan, maybe you see Nolan. Talk's there. Talk is definitely going.
Yeah. Reed called Sidney Brown Crash Bandicoot. I'm surprised. I'm surprised his style of play doesn't resonate more in Philadelphia. Like, he just hair's on fire. Now, I think a lot of it is he was hurt last year. He barely played. But if you go back to his rookie season, there were those little pockets that most notably the 99-yard interception return against Arizona. I mean, that dude Yeah, people should stop forgetting about him. You know,
I don't think they forget. I don't think they forget about him. It's just tough with this. Like when you had CJ and when you had and you had Reed, it's just like where are you going to put him at? It was one of those things. And then I think his game resonates enough. I think it's the fact that you just don't see him when he wasn't available for so long. I mean, early in the season he was still recovering from the knee. So then by then, like you're so used to say, okay, these are going to be our guys that we're going to see on the field. So you do that. And then when you look at the rest of that's like and then when you look at what he does in special teams, yeah, okay, that's nice. He's a smasher. We've seen the fight. Yeah, we've seen the fight. So he has all the. I don't think they forgot. It's just one of those things like there wasn't any spot for.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if he has the discipline that Vic likes. He's kind of
that could be an issue a little bit too.
Yeah. Which, you know, but there's a give and take. If you go to see, I mean, let's be honest. CJ's not the most disciplined player in the world, but he makes freaking plays.
I forget who said it, but somebody really was. I forget where I heard it from. But somebody was really true saying, "Listen, not the system that we see, from what it shows and what Vic teaches and what's in the actual playbook, what you see, does not 100% translate to what people see on the field. What have you? Guys,
I think that was Cooper and somebody was talking about exciting mics. I did see that clip. I think Cooper was talking to Zach about that. Yeah, their coverage is so freaking complicated. I think it's so layered. And if you just watch clips or you just watch film, and like there's a lot of match coverage stuff on the Eagles, which people think is man-to-man, but isn't man-to-man. And you got to carry a guy through a certain zone. That was the most impressive part of that defense, that young guys could pick up all the communication and all the intricacies of a Vic Fangio zone scheme. That was impressive.
It is really like bunch. It's fun when you look at these playbooks and you look at especially a bunch, when you see all okay, if this guy goes here, this guy goes here, it's a lot more like that can be really confusing in itself. Then you add what Vic has to say. If you have a bunch of Vic system, it's like, you need. I feel like these guys need like a master. That's why I think when you look at the evaluation process, they go after certain types of guys because they can pick it up. They have that football IQ. You need it in the system. It's not like for defensive linemen, it's like, okay, rush passer, but we see in this one, you got to be able to decide when to go out in your zone, what have you. For secondary guys or linebackers, good luck. And so I think that's a lot of things for that. It's very important for them to do that. It's a tough system. It's very tough.
Yeah, no doubt. Chris, let's go over to the offensive side, man. Kevin Patullo. How you feeling about Kevin Patullo post-spring work here, pre-training camp? You think he's got a good chance to improve this offense? What do you think? What do you think the offense looks like this year? How different does it look? What are your thoughts on Kevin Patullo right now?
I think we'll still see. I think it'll be close to. I think we'll see a little bit, few wrinkles. Nothing dramatically different, but I think it's one of the things I wouldn't be surprised if they try to take a couple more shots here or there. Because with Kellen is everything built. Kellen, a lot of things was layered, and I don't think we saw the true Kellen offense when we were here.
No, well, not the previous incarnation.
Yeah, no. So I think you'll see a lot of layers in terms of that. Maybe I think we'll see some stuff where they play off the play action a little bit more. I wouldn't be surprised with that because they know in the teams with Barkley and selling out, everybody they start seeing more a little bit more. I think they do it a little more. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried. We know the RPO is important as part of his offense, so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw wrinkles off of that. But I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think we'll see a market change like, wow, they're running the run and shoot. They're going 4 or 5 wide all the time or something like that. And I don't think it'll be anything different.
Run and shoot.
The J gun. There you go. I can see something like that for. All right, put 4 or 5 wide receivers out.
Pistol. Let's go pistol all day.
I wish they did it more last year, but I think that would have made it even more effective. But.
Not with Brett Toth snapping the football.
Yeah, I think that experiment with him at center needs to go. I know he's versatile.
Yeah, it's funny because he is very versatile. Stout loves that guy.
Yeah.
he's got violent hands, evidently, but he can't snap the football. I mean, we went through this a couple of years ago with Marcus Mariota. I felt bad for Marcus. It was like he was playing shortstop before he got to play quarterback because he'd have to get the snap, and then he would have to play quarterback. And they eventually had to bring in Josh Andrews, as you remember, just to get like valuable second team reps. Now they have Drew Kendall. Just let him do it.
Yeah. Well, this is where Bill McMahon, this will be kind of nice right now. Something like that. Yeah. They snuck that through. But yeah, I look at it like Tulsa tackle. I'm sorry. He's a tackle or guard. If anything, it starts after a while, it starts to hinder what you can do. Like it throws off the practice time and it hinders everything else. Guys get frustrated. At this time, I think it's more of, okay, it's nice that he can do it and he can do it well consistently. And he can block okay enough to do it. So that snap things, it needs to change.
It's funny how he was talking about that when he drafted Kendall. He's like, it's such an unnatural trait for people to snap the football. And then they go back to using Brad. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. But anyway, that's too deep in the weeds. That's not going to be important for the Eagles because Cam Jurgens eventually is going to be healthy. And he's a Pro Bowl center, so you're going to have no issues there. But the health of Jahad Campbell and Nakobe Dean is interesting on defense from the standpoint of Vic is on record saying probably not going to see Campbell until sometime in August. Now, that could be August 1st. It could be August 15th. It could be August 30th. We don't know. But at least there's some positive. Nakobe, it's probably going to start the season on the PUP list. So it's been the spring, and I'm sure it will be the summer of Jeremiah Trotter Jr. He's going to be probably a week one starter, Chris, at least for a few weeks. How much confidence do you have that he can hold down the fort? At least maybe not as good as Oren Burks, but in Oren Burks-like fashion.
I'll put him on his level a little bit higher. That's the thing.
Ooh, higher.
I think he's up there. His anticipation, his ability. I love how he was able to read defense. Like he got it from somebody like with his same name. I don't know what happened there. Like he got that instinct.
He got it from somebody. I don't remember that guy.
Yeah,
he got it from somebody.
He got. Can't wait, June. But I look at the way. The one thing that I thought he impressed me in the way he improved was his coverage. He's still not a guy. He's still not a guy I'm saying, okay, I want him on the field every 3 downs, especially on third downs and do that. But I think he's somebody where if you have him on first or second down, he'll hold his own pass coverage. And then the third down, you can bring in your exotics and all that looks and everything else like that. Bring somebody else in, what have you, like another safety, and have him back that way. But I look at the way he fills gaps. The way in practice watching him, like the way he fills blitzes with blitz gaps and he's anticipating times it. I like what he can do. I don't know with this roster and this team if he could be the starter long term here, just because they have so many pieces now and the John Campbell thing really throws it. That's a guy where you look at a depth piece when you start looking like, all right, he's going to find a job somewhere. He's going to be starting in this league somewhere. I just don't know if it's going to be because long term consistently here. I just don't know if it's going to be here because of what the pieces they have on that one. I think for a few games he can hold his own there.
Oh, I just thought I have a specific question I have to ask you. For those who don't know, Chris is the greatest phone photographer of all time. He's a tech person. By the way, we can't figure out the damn TVs when you're not there.
That's a tech person. John, that's a compliment that makes up for my grill bashing.
Yeah. Well, no, he's a phenomenal phone, and half of it he knows how to adjust the phone to have the greatest. And you got to teach me how to do that. But
all about frames.
It's all about. He's phenomenal at it. Now, here's the reason I bring that up. Back on the first OTA practice, it was raining, so they were inside. And it's a lot easier to see the defense inside than it is outside when they're basically over at Citizens Bank Park. And you need Chris's phone to to even get any even decent pictures. Here now Nolan Smith wasn't he was working in individual drills, but obviously he's still coming back from the torn triceps. So here's what I want to know from you, because you have the phone and you can see where other people can't. Did Zach Bond spend time with Jeremiah Washburn when the Eagles were doing special teams drills there? Because he did it in that practice. They went off to do some special teams, and all of a sudden it was Nolan Smith and Zach Bond working with Jeremiah Washburn when they were doing all the special teams drills.
He just on that last year.
He did? That's what I'm asking, because I didn't notice
it.
Yeah, and I know you probably got. So that's what I wanted to know, if that was new or if that's an expansion or they were already doing that last year.
It didn't happen a lot. It happened more early than it was toward the middle of the year. But he talks to Washburn because they still like to run him off the edge in case you're doing that. And then you're thinking, if you have, and the more and more you see it, that if you have Campbell now, you can kind of use them interchangeable in that way. Like I could see this defense looking in like a 3-3-5-ish type of look, where you really don't know, or like a 5-2, where you really don't know which way the guys are coming from. You could rush Vaughn off the edge, you could rush Campbell off the edge. You could, I'd really put, and this is maybe a little too much for the weeds. You have Carter on that right side, and then you put, say, Campbell, and then you put Bonnie outside. So you got 3 edge rushers, 3 really good pass rushers on one side, and you might think, okay, I could shift the whole line this way. Well, yeah, you got that's another. You got Nolan Smith on the other side. You give him one-on-ones, and you let him go that way too. There's so many different variations you can look off of this and use the personnels and their strengths. That the fact that you now have 2 guys who can play on the ball and off the ball, you can just play games left and right with what you're seeing and moving around. Almost like you move, like even if they do that the old Jets amoeba thing where you start moving them around, you can't figure out which way they're going. So it's tough for an offensive line to set and go, okay, this guy here. So I wouldn't be surprised they're continuing doing that again. Like it's good to have those guys.
I definitely think when Campbell's up to speed, I definitely think you're going to see the amoeba thing. I think you're going to see the A-gap stuff. I think you're going to see one guy rush, one guy drop, and try to be interchangeable that way. I think you're going to see a lot of that.
Inside stunts with the guy, maybe Nolan Smith dropping back once. It's looking like this is why it's so fun to think about what you can do. And I'm sure with Vic's mind is crazy, so you don't know what he's doing. Probably something like, what? Won't be surprised we see a lot of the San Fran play with it a little bit more too.
It's going to be Andrew Van Ginkel, baby.
Hey, Vic is the guy. Besides, probably I say, Vic is the guy who will get you paid if you do what he has. Look at that contract he got.
Sure. I brought that up about Jair Alexander. I'm like, hey, he might want to come 1 year here, get play in the Fangio system. Even if it's not man cover, probably go get paid.
Van Ginkel got paid coming off a Lisfranc injury, and then he got sort of the Saquon Barkley treatment. They gave him another year because he proved he was healthy, and they gave him a shitload of money. So Vic got him paid. But he's like a second-team All-Pro last year. He was phenomenal last year. So if that develops and they can get that type of player, and that's what they're looking for and it might be Campbell or Bond, but I think it's more Campbell because Bond, if Campbell's playing, Bond's got to play Mike linebacker, and that limits you at least a little bit because you have so much other responsibilities. But we'll see how that shakes out. And this year, Nakobe is in the mix as well when he comes back. Hopefully he's healthy. But long term, I don't see much of a path to Nakobe Dean being here, unfortunately, because he's a heck of a player, but just too many injuries. And if he plays well again, it's going to be too expensive, especially when you have Campbell and Smile Munden. I don't see how he comes back.
It's a tough road. It really is a tough one. And I'm thinking like, okay, if you like they renegotiate even player contracts and everything they have, but you're repaying all these extra guys as well too. And you could throw out the old adage we used to say, like, I don't pay linebacker what he did now, but now you paid the linebacker. So you're heavy at that. at that position, you got some other needs you're gonna have to do too. So yeah, I think this year is a good time for Nakobe, not only because it's a free agent afterwards, but I think we see a good version, still a good version of Nakobe in terms of that. And I think he's going to be extra motivated in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, especially for a guy like I've heard I talked to somebody before the draft saying he's a one contract guy because of the injuries. That's why he's really that. But he's played himself beyond that to the point you're like, you can't resign anybody. Like, but Nakobe, he's your heart too.
By the way, I was right. Yeah, and Vic said he's the middle linebacker basically when he's healthy for this year, obviously. But I was right about Trotter last week, so I happened to look at the PFF rankings. Zach Bond was number 1. He was just slightly ahead of Fred Warner. Oren Burks was number 4 behind Zach Bond, Fred Warner, and Bobby Wagner. Now, limited snaps, obviously, but number 4. Nakobe was number 12 in the entire NFL. And even if you want to go back, you know who number 20 was, Chris Franklin, in the entire NFL?
No.
Christian Ellis. Christian Ellis.
That's another one that got away because he was playing like when he got his opportunity.
He's a great special teams player. Great special teams player. What I remember, and I was in this category, I think most of you came into the spring last year and said, this is one of the worst linebacker rooms in the NFL. Everybody thought that. Who's going to play? Nakobe had never played before. Vic was talking about he had never played before, really. Injuries. Zach Bond never played the position before. 5 years in New Orleans. Handful of snaps, all ball. Oren Burks, he's bouncing around from Green Bay to San Francisco. We thought, that's a pretty good backup linebacker. Then he got cut. Remember, he got cut.
Yes.
And they brought him back. Nobody. We don't want Oren Burks. It's amazing how quickly things can change in the NFL. Amazing.
Yeah, it goes with in a lot of things. It goes with once a day. It goes to coaching, and it goes to at least have opportunity too. And you look at these guys like I held my breath when he said Oren was coming in there. Like when the coach went down, like, all right, which safeties want to play a little bit more linebacker now?
I was with you. I said, oh my God, remember what Kansas City did to Oren Burks in the Super Bowl when Drake Greenlaw went down? Yeah. They just put him in a blender.
Still one of the weirdest injuries ever. But yeah, the fact I think he used that as motivation. You know, Oren's a cool guy. Like he relied on a lot that know-how he had, and he's been around the block for a little bit. I think he's another example of how players fit the scheme. Like he's another guy. Is one of those things where I see him, if he's in that scheme, I think he's really good. Or now I'm like, all right, cool. If he goes away, let's see what he can really do on top of that. So, yeah,
Vic's great. That's what I say. Vic's great, man. He's going to get the most out of you. Period.
If you buy in, like Chris stated, if you listen and you buy in, you're right. Chris, we appreciate you joining today, brother. As always, great talking to you here on Birds 365. Rumor is you've been upgraded now to the Hall of Fame Grilling Club. So congratulations on that.
I don't know about grilling, but he's in the Hall of Fame Photography Club. I'll tell you that.
I appreciate it.
Chris, we appreciate you joining, man. Make sure everybody follows him at C Franklin News and read all his work at NJ.com. Chris, we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you, brother.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, guys. You have a good one now.
There's Chris Franklin joining us here on Birds 365 to close out this week, this Football Friday edition of the show. Great stuff as always. Johnny Mac. John, great week. And we have about 5 weeks ahead of us, brother, where we will prepare and get ready for training camp. I'm going to force you to do lists and rankings and everything. And you're going to
I did come up. Well, already somebody, maybe we can do a segment of what annoys me the most that day. I got, boy, man, I used to have this editor back in the days when, you could rip people to shreds with no worries about HR and things like that, especially in this industry. Boy, But anyway, so somebody wrote, and I'm not going to say who. I won't say who, but it's one of these aggregator articles, and somebody said it's not a bad idea. It was worst spot on roster basically for each team. What's the worst spot on the roster? And for the Eagles, it was Kevin Petula. Now, can anybody see what's wrong with that?
Guy's never he's never been in the role in his life.
He's not on the fucking roster. He's a coach.
Well, are they including coaches in their entire exercise?
Well,
they would have to.
Then you don't say roster. Anyway, that's a pet peeve, because if you do that with an editor, an old school editor,
they'll rip you.
Oh my Lord.
Is that where you got your like your former first round pick one too, was from an old school editor?
Yeah.
Because I see that all the time now. And now I always think of you when I see it. Because
everybody does it.
Everybody does it. Like even the biggest writers do it, Like I'm reading something on NFL.com and I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah. It is. Yeah, stuff like that bothers the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Which it should. Everybody does it. It's like nobody's a former first round
Zeal
pick.
says journalism is dead. John, do you feel journalism is dying?
It's not dying. There's still good journalism, but there's a lot. The industry has been hurt, to say the least, by unprofessional people having platforms. And as silly as that stuff might sound to people outside the industry, it's like it's very important to get things correct. And I try to, when I do, everybody gets things wrong. Everybody, I make that mistake.
Conflating too, like not everybody is a reporter or is trying.
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there are people who are entertainers, or there are people who are aggregators. Like
and it bleeds over. Like I report and I do a show, and sometimes I speculate on the show, and people conflate that, and I try to split it as best as possible, but it's difficult. So everything.
I think you do a pretty good job. I mean, I think we make it pretty clear when you're reporting and when you're not.
Sometimes I get caught, and sometimes I even say things like that because it's part of former first round pick. Like he's always a first round. He's a first round pick, and you say 2019 first round pick. If you want to be correct, that's all. Which is old school editors would be sticklers about that kind of stuff.
Right, you got to be correct.
Yeah, which doesn't exist that much anymore. As I bring up, all right, it's fine if you want to say the biggest weakness on the Philadelphia Eagles is Kevin Petula. I don't agree, but that's fine to say. But don't say biggest roster, problem. He's not on the roster,
right?
That's all. The stuff like that. But as far as there's plenty of good journalism. One of the problems is like Seth Wickersham. You have to have time to do good journalism.
Yeah,
and everybody wants to like. If you do something like it takes weeks and often months, and you have to double source and triple source stuff, there's plenty of that goes on, but you have to dig for it. And a lot of people, and I'm in this category and I hate it. One of the things I envy about the Inquirer people, or, back when the Athletic was doing more.
Yeah, they have more time. It's like 1-2 articles a week. Yeah.
Yeah. And they have more time to do some actual reporting, and I envy that. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's easier said than done for companies that pay, because they just need.
Yeah, right. Everything's not how JAKIB's built, and I don't think it's how Sports Illustrated's really built either. You got, what I mean, we're rapid fire, and we got to get things posted quick.
Yeah, and more people are like that, and obviously that is problematic for a lot of reasons, but it's the reality of the world.
Yep, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Johnny Mac, great show today, brother. Your final thoughts from an Eagles perspective on this Football Friday here. It's June 13th, Friday the 13th. I didn't even realize that until right now. Friday the 13th. I never cared about stuff like that. But for those who do, there you go. All right. Don't do anything bad today, or don't put yourself in a compromising position. John, your final thoughts on today's show.
I'm not superstitious. I say that all the time. So people say, don't say that about the Eagles. Yeah. I have no control over the Eagles. So
yeah.
Same thing with Friday the 13th. Bad thing might happen, but not because it's Friday the 13th.
Right. Exactly. Johnny Mac, great show, brother. We will catch you later on Monday, brother. Thanks for doing it this week. And we'll talk to you Monday.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks, Johnny Mac. There's Johnny Mac, John McMullen, joining us here on Birds 365. Great show today. Great week of shows, really. As we here we are in the off season now, kind of the official summer period of the NFL. You know, they don't like to admit that, but this is the one time that they actually do say it's the summer period of the offseason. So we do got a little bit of summertime, but it's all good. All right, I got to run. So Brian says Zander time. I got a recording to do, actually, Brian, and I'm in a very tight time window. So I got to get out of here by no later than 10:15, 10:30. But I'll kick it around for a couple of minutes. Got to get this recording done. Hope everybody, by the way, has a great weekend. Hope you guys have some good nice time off, or if you're working, I hope you have a nice time at work, the best time you can have. If you're grilling up like Brian Pumper or Prince, hopefully you're grilling up a good steak. All right. Recording. What do you mean, what type of recording? I'm recording another piece of content, Brian. What type of recording? It's boring as baseball season, son, he says. Baseball. I've been enjoying baseball. I'm not going to lie. I've been watching it a lot. All right? I've watched a lot of Phillies this year, because we're doing the Philly scorecard on JAKIB. So, you know, I got to do a segment, or I got to record a segment after every Phillies game. So I've been watching it a lot. I've been enjoying it. Have a great weekend, Big Mike. You too. Kimberly says, Zander, I hate summer. Bring on football season. It's a rock and a hard place for me, Kimberly. You know? Well, you got to remember too, football has also become my work, you know, and again, I love football season. Don't get me wrong, but like, it has become the summertime. I've always loved summer since I was a kid, but the fall's great. I mean, football season starts. I mean, it feels like there's like pieces restored in the earth. You know, when that first kick happens, you're like, all right, we're good. Even preseason for me, like if I see some preseason football, I'm like, all right, we're so close, I can almost taste it. But hockey game last night was incredible. I didn't catch it all, but I caught what I could of it. I'm going to rewatch some of the highlights today. Father's Day this weekend. That's right. Sunday is Father's Day. My brother's first Father's Day. Obviously, my legendary father himself. I'll be hanging out with him this weekend. So happy Father's Day to everybody, to all the great supporters here who are fathers, to you guys who have fathers, to all the great fathers out in the world. All right. I like what Slager said the other day. Thank a mother effer. All right. I shouldn't say that, but then I will say it's funny. Z, y'all got season tickets? No, I don't got season tickets, brother. I haven't been to a game yet this year, but apparently I'm going to one in June. My girlfriend's grandmother is a huge Phillies fan. She's a huge Phillies fan. So for her birthday, I think we're going to the game. So I'll be there for that. All right. I'll be there for that. But that's good. You guys notice I had my Dunkin' this morning. I haven't had my Dunkin' in a while. You know why I had my Dunkin'? I'm at my girlfriend's house, and you know she takes good care of me. If I don't have my girlfriend, I'm better with my girlfriend. That's how it works, guys. All right, it's how it works. I got an Italian mother. Maybe she spoiled me. My beautiful Italian mother. But that's how it works, man. All right, so I'm here. I'm prepped. I'm ready to go. I got a big Dunkin'. It's good stuff. Twiz says, Sills better send me a Father's Day card. That's a good one, Twiz. You're only a father to the pet hamster you got on your piece of land in West Virginia. Happy Father's Day to all. Crowley, you and me both, bro. I'll be kicking it with my dad this weekend. There you go, Crowley. I had some nerd commenting the other day. I love well, no, you know what? I'm not going to go into that today. All right. I'll save it for another time, for another conversation. Dirty air. Come on, dirty air. If your kids and your wife don't remember it's Father's Day, I got an issue. All right. I'll have to march over to the dirty air household and set the record straight. All right. And John Secunda says he's hitting the No Kings protest. Where is Chicago? Is that where you are, Secunda? Gonna be lit. Secunda, just be safe, bro. Okay. I don't care what you do with your life or where you go, but just be safe. All right, man. Be safe. Screw your head on straight. Busy family. Dirty air, aren't we all, brother? I hear you. Xander went soft. Brian Pump. It's actually the opposite. It's actually the opposite. That's actually the opposite, Pump. Big Duncan and no corn. There you go. That's a good motto. That's a good motto. I'm mad my son Brian Pumper didn't wish me a happy Father's Day. Did we miss any super chats today? Oh, we did. Dang, sorry. I missed super chats with Johnny Mac. My bad. Kimberly Sarico. Table will turn. Paying defense and drafting offense. You're right. It's already happening. You can see it. You can see it. Dank Bird Gang. Again, thank you, Dank, for your chats today. ZB, Coop, and Reed make it the exciting white and a halves. Yeah, I guess Zach Baughn's is he a mixed race Zach Baughan? Is that what Zach Baughan is? I don't pay attention to that much. Just dudes to me, man. Just dudes. We all got a skin color, but that don't make us who we are. But I get it's. What kind of steak should we grill in this weekend? Kind of steak are you thinking? I guess you meant steak, Big Mike. I don't know. What do you like? You know, I had like a skirt steak earlier. They're not my favorite, but sometimes they're easy. I like a filet, but not fatty enough, not flavorful enough. Go T-bone. You can go, I don't know, New York strip's always pretty good, always solid. I you know, when I went out to eat from one of my birthdays, big steakhouse, I got a tomahawk. That thing was fire. Tomahawk was fire. If it ain't ribeye is amazing. See, Brian, here's the thing though, and you're right about this, but there are a lot of bums, Brian, who can't handle the fat on the ribeye, which obviously yours truly loves the fat on the ribeye. But we got a lot of this is where Pumper's probably right. You got a lot of dirty steak eaters. Prince is one of them, Pump. A little bit of fat on a steak, and Prince is like, gooey. That's Prince. All right. Jaquan, shut up. You ain't doing nothing, Jaquan. You're the fake Saquon. You got a fake name with a fake address with an anonymous picture. Ribeye the best. Ribeye's amazing. What about T-bone? T-bone's great. T-bone's great. Burgers and steaks. I don't know. Steaks are overrated. I don't think so. I think steaks are fire. You get a good steak, Twiz. It's prime. Fat makes it tasty. Absolutely, Fly Eagles. That's literally what brings the flavor to the meat. So, no doubt about it. All right, everybody. I appreciate you all for being here today. I got to run. I do appreciate all the great support we've had, though, all off season here. We got 5 weeks, guys, till training camp. It'll go quick. I promise. I mean, this week went quick. Now do that 5 times. We'll be there before we know it. And once training camp comes, man, seasons is here. And then we're going to literally take Jaquan's Dallas Cowboys and beat the shit out of them week 1. So bad, we'll never see him again. Appreciate all of you guys. All right. See you next time on Birds 365. Love all you guys.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.